Hey friends, sorry I'm a smidgy late, but we're here. What song does everyone have stuck in their head? Can anyone guess what song I have stuck in my head? I'll be shocked if anyone can guess it. I'll be truly shocked, like blown away shocked. Oh, I was gonna say, wait, is it Friday? And then I realized it's Thursday. You mean it's almost Friday. The thing is, Jen, Friday doesn't really mean anything to me. All Volo? What's that mean, Mom? What does that mean? Did you make a typo? I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. No, but that's a funny one.
Good morning.
No, it's not that one. Good try. Yeah, Mom's here.
Good morning, Helen.
The Flight? The Flight? I don't know that one. Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. No, but I do like that song. The song that is currently stuck in my head is, I will narrow it down from you. It is from a non-Disney cartoon musical. Whoa. There's not very many of those, right?
Is it from Five O Goes West?
It's not, but it's also great.
From 5-0 American Tail.
No, but that's also great.
That's a great song.
It is a great song and it is a great movie. 10 out of 10 would recommend to a friend. But it's not.
Get my niece to watch it once. She was like, boring. I was like,
And you were like, sacrilege, you evil child.
I was sad, but I was like, deep down, legit.
Yeah, I would have been too. If Zoe walked away from that for me, I would be like, we have to have a talk. We'd have to have a talk. Which one was it, the oldest or? Yeah.
The oldest.
The oldest? Yikes, that hurts. Maybe now that she's a little older. It's not Anastasia. The song that I have stuck in my head, and I will narrow it down for you a little more, is from the Don Bluth cartoon Thumbelina. It's been stuck in my head for days. You sent me a link on Instagram. Oh, thank you, Mom. It's from Thumbelina. It's been stuck in my head for 3 days now. 3 days. That's okay, Zoe. That's okay. Monster.
What?
You poured it over the grate.
I liked it.
I know you did. It's funny.
Why is it monstrous?
Because now the grate's wet. And it's for drying.
But it will dry also.
I am making Vivida. This is my favorite of the coffees from the Nespresso thing. I like this one. It comes with a little boost of vitamin B in it, and I think that's good for me.
Favorite is the one that they dangled in front of us.
Yeah, oh my gosh. The cruelty of the Nespresso people. They make these limited edition coffees, and then when they get really popular, they're like, JK, bye! And you're like, well, why did you do it then? Why did you even make it? I was gonna give you my money. I was gonna buy it. Like, why? You made it just for funsies and then say bye-bye? I don't know. I didn't like that. It was silly to me. I thought that was really dumb.
They're mean.
They are mean. I was like, you guys, I want the coffee that you let me taste it. It was good. I bought a sleeve. We liked it. Now we want more. And they were like, no, just kidding. It's all gone.
Yeah.
It was like 1 week later. They make small batches. They do, but they haven't made it again since, Mom. So it's like, okay, I can understand being sold out, but it's just gone. They made this raspberry. We tasted it. 1 week later, we were like, oh my gosh, that was so good. We have to go get more. We went online, nothing online. Went back to the store, nothing in the store. And they were like, oh yeah, it's gone. Why did you make it for 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever?
Pointless, actually.
It was totally pointless. Like, why bother making something for such a short period of time if you're a national company? I don't get it. I genuinely don't understand that. We are, just like the New York Times. We're always in a fight with the New York Times. Here you go, babe. I mean, I've gotten close. I've gotten close to a marathon. It's not like a full marathon, but I was close. Yeah. I lost my favorite ice cream in 1963 from 31 flavors, and I'm still crying. I get it, Mom. I get it. We are cut from that same... Yeah, what was the flavor, Mom? You know what I'm still mad about ice cream? We probably could, Mom, because we have an ice cream maker. The thing that I'm sad about in ice cream is that Disneyland took away Fantasia ice cream. Fantasia ice cream was the ice cream of my childhood. It was so stinking good. And then they just stopped making it. Why? Fantasia ice cream was a combination of cherry, banana, and pistachio. And you could only get it on Main Street in Cincinnati. And then they started selling it in some grocery stores, and then all of a sudden it's gone forever. And you're like, well, why? Yeah. I made a slime base on it. Yeah, it had cherry chunks, it had pistachios in it, and the ice cream was green and yellow and red swirled. It was so beautiful. It tasted so good. Mom's was coconut macaron. I made a slime based on it in my first year of making slime.
You should try to make your mom.
I should bring that slime back. We should try to make you coconut macaron slime, Mom. Ice cream. Goo Goo Clusters was my favorite, and you can't find it now. Why do they do that? Why do they do that? Why do they take them away when they're right? So good. I don't understand. Your coffee's right there. You're welcome. Anyway, that's my diatribe for the day.
Come on. I agree with all.
What's your favorite slime you make? I don't know. I change all the time. Probably the gasoline slime. Probably that.
Before you...
It went on vacation, so they said, Mom says. Yeah, that's what they always do. They're like, oh, it's on vacation, they'll be back, and then gone forever.
Likely story. They took it
A
to the farm.
likely story. Those pants are cool.
Upstate New York.
They keep emailing me by the by, so if you want more, we should.
These companies are psychos.
They are. I'm either gonna unsubscribe or you should buy more.
Oh yeah, unsubscribe. I don't want to we get different types of pants. Yeah. These are nice around the house pants, but I'm not sure how much I wear them.
No.
They're just like out and about. I mean,
Maybe. I don't know. We try it with different shirts. Just a little bit of a boo-boo. It's okay, I fixed it. Okay. You know what makes me sad, my friend? Hyping this to make that decision. I understand that, Jack. It's hard not to read ahead, but the glory of getting to react to things together and like all of us experiencing things together is like part of the fun of book club, I think. So that's why we do it, you know? Part of the exciting thing about book club is getting to all hear something together for the first time and like commiserating or being excited together and stuff like that, so. I said, what are you talking about, Becca? That's the reason I don't buy book club books. Yeah, I have to be really good about not looking ahead because it's just sitting here in my house. I think everyone should just get them afterwards, you know? All right, so today we are on chapter 12. The apple you were hyping up while eating ice cream. The apple I was hyping up while eating ice cream. I don't even remember. I don't even remember. The cheesecake apple? The cheesecake apple's seasonal now? Really? That's surprising. Huh. I did not know that. It didn't used to be fair. So, I didn't know that. This is a little scary. Chapter 12 is called The Unwanted, and this is the drawing for it. Scary. Oh my. Yeah. All right, here we go. Yes, they are unwanted, whatever they are. They look like witches. One of them, okay, so looking closely, you won't be able to see it through the screen, but, you know, why is cheesecake seasonal? Yeah, it's weird. I didn't know that it was, and it wasn't when I got it. They look like they have different animal faces. Oh, okay, if I had to guess, I would guess that these are the witches from, you know, like Tarantuline and whatever, because they've got like, you know, like Rat-Faced Mary. You guys remember Rat-Faced Mary from the other books? I think this is who those are because they look like they've got animal faces. Maybe they came because Lucy's a witch or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, let's find out. I really don't know. I'm just speculating. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Everything changed for Bristol after Madame Weatherbury gave her the magic wand. By the end of her second week at the academy, Bristol wasn't only catching up to Emeralda and Xanthos, her abilities were surpassing Tangerina and Skylene's. She was completing all of Madame Weatherbury's magical assignments with much more ease and efficiency than her classmates. In fact, Madame Weatherbury started asking Bristol to give demonstrations for the others instead of asking the apprentices. Although Bristol did everything she could to keep the peace with Tangerina and Skylene, her rapid progress earned their resentment. "It's not fair," Skylene whispered to Tangerine. "Why does Bristol get a wand?" "Well, apparently she has a disorder," her friend whispered back. Skylene grunted. "Lucky. I want a disorder." Despite their occasional remarks and dirty looks, Bristol was too excited to let the girls' jealousy dampen her spirit. Now that she was in touch with her magic, she became infatuated with it and used it for everything she possibly could. Bristol waved her wand to open doors and drawers. She put on her shoes and clothes, and at night before bed she would dance about her room and make her books magically twirl around her. At meals, Bristol even used magic to feed herself, levitating the food directly into her mouth. However, she quickly stopped this practice as it seemed to annoy everyone at the table. "Okay, enough showing off," Emeralda said. Once the students had all mastered their early improvement and rehabilitation exercises, Madame Weatherbury moved on to the next subject in her curriculum. She led her students to a tower in the castle that was completely empty except for dust and cobwebs. "Well, perhaps some of the most miraculous parts of magic are the ability to create something out of nothing," Madame Weatherbury said. "So, for your first manifestation lesson, I want you to fill this room with pieces of furniture. Keep in mind that manifestation is similar to improvement, except that there are no existing materials to work with. Summoning elements to appear out of thin air requires even greater concentration and visualization. Try to imagine every inch of the object that you wish to create. Focus on its dimensions and weight. Picture exactly where you want it to be and how it would change your surroundings. Bristol, would you like to begin?" Without looking, Bristol could feel Tangerina and Skylene's cold stares on the back of her head. "Actually, why don't we have Tangerina and Skylene start today?" Bristol suggested. "I'm sure that they have much more experience in manifestation than I do." The girls were surprised by Bristol's recognition. They pretended to be annoyed by the opportunity, but deep down Bristol could tell that they were eager for the attention. Tangerina stood in the center of the tower and manifested an orange armchair with honeycomb tufts. Skylene made a bathtub appear beside Tangerina's chair, and it was overflowing with soap bubbles. After the apprentices were finished, Emeralda summoned a quaint vanity with several jewelry boxes, and Xanthos conjured a brick oven. Bristol didn't want to outshine the others, so she waved her wand and made a modest but elegant wardrobe appear. "Well done, everyone," Madame Weatherbury said. "Well, that just leaves Lucy. Where did Lucy go?" No one realized that Lucy was missing until now, and they looked around the room for her. "She's hiding behind Tangerina's chair," Emeralda said. "I can see her boots peeking out from behind it." Lucy groaned after her classmates found her. Clearly she was hiding to avoid Madame Weatherbury's lesson, but Lucy pretended that she was innocently searching for something on the ground. Sorry, I thought I saw my lucky shamrock," Lucy said. "When did you lose it?" Xanthos asked. "Yeah, about 4 years ago," she said, "but you never know when or where things are gonna turn up." Lucy begrudgingly got to her feet and moved to the center of the tower. She thought long and hard about the object she wanted to manifest and smiled as her head filled with pleasant images of it. Unfortunately, Lucy was greatly disappointed when a stack of wooden coffins appeared in the corner of the tower. "Well, in my defense, I was trying to make a bunk bed," she said. Madame Weatherbury gave Lucy a comforting pat on the back. "A for effort, dear," she said. Regardless of how much Madame Weatherbury encouraged her, Lucy left every lesson feeling worse than she had after the one before. And now that Bristol was armed with a magic wand, Lucy didn't have someone to commiserate with. Bristol sympathized with her friend, but she couldn't imagine the mental torment that she was going through. With each passing day, Lucy's worst fear about who and what she was became more and more probable. The next morning, Madam Weatherbury's lesson started immediately after they finished breakfast. It was the first day since Bristol had arrived that Madam Weatherbury hadn't received a strange letter in the mail. Bristol couldn't tell if she was just imagining it, but the fairy seemed cheerier than usual, and she wondered if not receiving a letter had something to do with that. Perhaps no news was good news. Madam Weatherbury escorted her students and apprentices through the Academy's picturesque property and halted the procession in the middle of the two steep hills. Mrs. V was joining their lesson today, and the students were curious about why the housekeeper was there. Now that you've been introduced to improvement, rehabilitation, and manifestation, today's lesson will focus on the fourth and final category of magic, imagination, Madam Weatherbury announced. Always remember, a fairy's limitations are only defined by the limits of their imagination. Over the course of your careers, you'll encounter problems and obstacles without obvious solutions. It'll be up to you, and you alone, to create remedies for those particular predicaments. Mrs. V has kindly volunteered to help us with today's exercise. I have absolutely no idea what I signed up for, so I am genuinely terrified, Mrs. V said. The housekeeper climbed on top of the first hill and anxiously waited for the activities to begin. For this morning's assignment, each of you will use your imagination to magically transport Mrs. V to the other hill, Madam Weatherbury instructed. Try to make your method as original as possible. Use what you learned in our improvement, rehabilitation, and manifestation exercises to bring your imagination to life. Lucy, we'll start with you. Ah, geez, Lucy said in despair. Mrs. V, I'm really sorry for however this turns out. The musician's daughter cracked her knuckles and focused all her energy on the housekeeper. Suddenly, a massive sinkhole appeared underneath Mrs. V and swallowed her whole. A few tense moments later, another sinkhole appeared on the second hill and spat the housekeeper out like a rotten piece of fruit. Oh, thank God, Lucy said with a deep sigh of relief. To be honest, I wasn't sure we'd ever see her again. Mrs. V was anything but relieved. She got to her feet and wiped the dirt off her clothes with shaky hands. Mrs. Weatherbury, the housekeeper asked, could we please add a clause about safety to your instructions so today's lesson doesn't kill me? Of course we can, Madam Weatherbury obliged. Children, I don't think it will be a problem for the rest of you, but try transporting Mrs. V without the use of natural disasters. Bristol, you're up next. To Mrs. V's delight, Bristol's approach was much gentler than Lucy's. She waved her wand, and a giant bubble appeared around the housekeeper. The bubble floated through the air and calmly carried Mrs. V to the opposite hill. Well, that was just lovely, Mrs. V said. Thank you, Bristol. One by one, the students and apprentices stepped forward and applied their own solution to the task. Tangerina sent hundreds of bumblebees buzzing towards Mrs. V, and the insects raised her into the air and plopped her down on the other hill. Skylene summoned water from a nearby stream and transported Mrs. V like a moving water slide. Emeralda moved her hand through the air like she was slowly waving goodbye, and a bridge made of golden topaz appeared between the hills. Wonderful work, ladies, Madam Weatherbury said. Xanthos, that just leaves you. Everyone turned to the boy, but he wasn't paying any attention to the lesson. Xanthos was staring in the distance with a disturbed expression, as if he had seen a ghost. Madam Weatherbury? Who are they? He asked. Xanthos pointed and the others looked in the direction he was facing. At the edge of the property, just inside the hedge barrier, were 4 people in matching black cloaks. The mysterious figures stood perfectly still and watched the fairy and her students in complete silence. The visitors instantly made everyone uncomfortable. No one had noticed them arrive, so no one knew how long they'd been standing there. However, none of the children was more unsettled by the unexpected guests than their teacher was. That's really funny, Naisa. Madam Weatherbury, do you know those people? Emeralda asked. The fairy nodded, and a complicated mix of anger and fear surfaced on her face. Yes, unfortunately, I do. I'm sorry, children, but we do need to postpone the rest of today's lesson. Once their presence was known, the cloaked figures crept towards Madame Weatherbury and her students. Their bodies were completely covered except for their faces, and although they were shaped like women, the closer they got, the less human they appeared. The first woman had round yellow eyes and a pointed nose that was like a beak. The second woman's eyes were red with thin pupils like a reptile's, and a forked tongue slipped in and out of her mouth. The third woman had oily skin, enormous lips, and bulging black eyes like a fish. The fourth woman had green eyes like a cat, and her face was covered in whiskers, and a sharp underbite poked out of her mouth. "Hello, Celeste," the woman with the forked tongue hissed. There was so much tension between Madame Weatherbury and the cloaked women that the students could have sworn the air became thicker. "Children, this is Crowbeth Claudale, Nutelia Vipes, Squidale Inkerson, and Felina Scratchworth," the fairy announced. "They're old acquaintances of mine." Lucy crossed her arms and gave the visitors a distrusting glare. "I'm guessing those aren't their chosen names," she said. Felina jerked in Lucy's direction. "You wouldn't believe some of the choices we've made," she growled. The whiskered woman gave the children a creepy grin, exposing her piercing teeth. The students and apprentices took a fearful step back and hid behind their teacher. "All right, that's enough," Madame Weatherbury ordered. "Obviously, you made the journey to speak with me, but I will not do it in front of my students. We will continue this conversation in the privacy of my office, or not at all." The women did not object to Madame Weatherbury's demand. The fairy turned on her heel and escorted the unwelcome guest toward the castle. Bristol and her classmates had so many questions about the visitors, but as they looked to one another for answers, everyone was equally confused. Even Tangerine and Skylene were puzzled about what was happening. "Mrs. V?" Tangerina asked. "Who are those women?" Mrs. V watched the visitors move across the property with disgust. "Well, those aren't women," she said. "Those are witches." The students and apprentices collectively gasped. "Witches?" Skylene was in shock. "How do you know?" "You can always spot a witch by her appearance," Mrs. V told them. "Witchcraft leaves marks on those who practice it. The more a witch partakes, the more it changes her into a monster. And if my eyes aren't deceiving me, those four have had an awful lot of practice." As the witches climbed the front step, Crowbeth spun her head all the way around like an owl to send the children one final scowl before she entered the castle. "But why are they at an academy for magic?" Emeralda asked. "What do they want with Madame Weatherbury?" "Well, that I don't know," Mrs. V said, "but we'd all be wise to keep our distance from them." The housekeeper's advice was reasonable, but keeping distance was the last thing that Bristol wanted. The witches only added to the ongoing mystery of Madame Weatherbury, and Bristol craved answers more desperately than she ever had before. As soon as she remembered the hole in her bookshelf, Bristol took off running as fast as her feet would carry her. She just hoped she could reach her bedroom before she missed a single word of the fairy's conversation with the witches. "Hey, Bristol, where you going?" Lucy called after her. "Bathroom," Bristol called over her shoulder. "Oh, when nature calls, Mrs. V said. "That reminds me, I need to stop adding so many prunes to the oatmeal. Woohoo!" Bristol hurried inside the castle and sprinted up the floating staircase to her bedroom and onto the third floor. When she peeked into Madame Weatherbury's office, she saw her teacher furiously pacing in front of the bubbling fireplace. 4 witches stood around her, eyeing the fairy like vultures waiting for their prey to die. "How dare you come here unannounced?" Madame Weatherbury said. "You have no right to barge into my academy like this." "You left us no choice," Crowbeth screeched. "You stopped responding to our letters." "I told you I was finished," Madame Weatherbury exclaimed. "We're not working together anymore." Madame Weatherbury's working with the witches. "Now's not the time for reluctance," Squidella grumbled. "The northern conflict is nearing the point of no return. The enemy is gaining ground and growing stronger every day. If we don't act soon, we'll be defeated." "Well, then find someone else to help you," Madame Weatherbury snapped. "I can't do it anymore." "Celeste, we still want the same thing," Nutelia hissed. "We are seeking a safer world and acceptance for our kind. Helping us in the end, the northern conflict will move us one step closer to that goal."
Don't imply that you and I are the same, Madame Weatherbury said. If it weren't for people like you, people like me wouldn't have had to fight for acceptance in the first place. Celeste, don't act superior, Felina growled. Before you got the bright idea to start this academy, we all agreed the Northern conflict was the best way to change the world's opinion about the magical community. We put our differences aside and created a plan. None of us predicted that it would last this long. None of us expected it would be this grueling. But like it or not, the conflict continues. Victory is still possible, but if we don't finish what we started, everything we've worked for will be lost. Madame Weatherbury had a seat behind her desk and covered her face with a gloved hand. Bristol had never seen the fairy look so overwhelmed. You don't understand, she said. I still believe in our plan, but I can't help you because I can't face her again. Bristol had no idea what Madame Weatherbury was talking about, but the way the fairy referenced this person gave Bristol chills. She hadn't thought her teacher was scared of anything or anyone, but obviously Madame Weatherbury was deathly afraid of whoever they were speaking of. Celeste, you're the only one who can face her, Crowbeth screeched. No one has the power to stand up to her, no one but you. Each time I face her, she grows stronger and I become weaker, Madame Weatherbury said. I barely survived our last encounter. If I fight her again, I may never return. Yes, but we nearly won, Squidella grumbled, and you were more than willing to make sacrifices back then. Well, things are different now, Madame Weatherbury said. I have an entire academy depending on me. I can't put myself in that kind of jeopardy ever again. Even if we resolve the Northern conflict, there's no guarantee that the hate and hostility towards the magical community will stop. But once my students have finished their training, they'll accomplish what we've always wanted. You're putting an awful lot of faith in this academy, Faline growled. But do you honestly believe that a world that burns people at the stake for sport is going to be persuaded by the good deeds of fairies? No. If we want to change the world, we must earn the world's respect. And bringing the Northern conflict to an end is the best opportunity that we've had in centuries. But General White has made progress, Madame Weatherbury said. I'm sure he's found a way to destroy her by now. General White has done a brilliant job keeping the Northern Kingdom from extinction, Crowbeth screeched. But we all know his army is no match for her. There's only one way to finish the Northern conflict once and for all. That's you, Celeste. Nutalia leaned toward Madame Weatherbury and took her hand. Join us, she hissed. Together we can make a brighter future, not just for ourselves, but for your students as well. Madame Weatherbury went very silent as she considered the witch's request. Tears came to her eyes and she slowly shook her head not because she disagreed with her visitors, but because she knew that they were right. Fine, the fairy said with a heavy heart. I will help you end the Northern conflict, but afterwards, I never want to see you forever again. Yeah, you'll find no objection on that from us, Faline growled. End the Northern conflict and we'll never need anything from you again. Good, Madame Weatherbury said. Then God have mercy if I don't succeed. The witches were pleased that they had convinced her, and Madame Weatherbury put a few of her belongings into a glass suitcase and left her office. Bristol hurried out of her bedroom and caught up to her teacher and the witches in the entrance hall. Madame Weatherbury, she called to her, are you going somewhere? It was very difficult for Bristol to pretend like she didn't know what was happening, but not nearly as difficult as it was for Madame Weatherbury to pretend that everything was all right. I'm afraid I have to leave the academy for a couple of days, the fairy informed her. The ill friend that I was telling you about has taken a turn for the worst. Will she be all right? Bristol asked. Well, I certainly hope so, Madame Weatherbury said. Can you let Mrs. V and your classmates know that I'm gone? Yeah, of course, Bristol said. The fairy gave her a bittersweet smile and led the witches out of the castle. Bristol ran after them and stopped her teacher on the castle's front steps. Madame Weatherbury, she called. Wait! Yes, dear. What is it? To the fairy's surprise, Bristol threw her arms around her and gave her teacher a hug goodbye. Madame Weatherbury eyed the girl's curious behavior, not knowing what to make of it. Please be safe, Bristol said. Illnesses can be contracted, you know? Don't worry, I'll be fine, the fairy said. Please look after the others while I'm away. Bristol nodded and released Madame Weatherbury from her tight embrace. The fairy tossed her brooch on the ground and the golden carriage grew to its full size. She whistled to a field nearby, and 4 unicorns excitedly galloped towards the carriage. Its reins magically fastened around them, and the fairy and the witches climbed aboard the golden carriage and raced through the property, eventually disappearing into the hedge barrier. Bristol waved as they left, but as soon as they were out of sight, she froze and looked into the distance with fear. She couldn't fight the terrible feeling that she would never see Madame Weatherberry again. Well, harsh flow. It was a kind of short chapter, but we do have Roll for Slime tonight, so I do have to go to get prepared for that and everything. Just so everyone knows, Roll for Slime is Patreon only tonight. I'll be on at 4:30. We have a full agenda, so there's no one getting added tonight because I do have a hard out time. And Roxy, it's because there's After Dark stuff, and so I have to do it on YouTube. There are group slots, but that's it. No solo slots left, Jen. But yes, I posted the agenda, so everyone can see that there. And we'll make those tonight. Oh, no to leaving. Yeah. But I'll be back on tonight. If anything happens to Mother Weatherberry, I'm locking myself in a closet, never coming out. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. The one thing I will say is that she's a better and more appropriate caretaker and teacher than Dumbledore ever was to Harry. That's for darn sure. She's better at taking care of Bristol and making sure that she keeps her safe. You ever read those memes that are like, what was Dumbledore's problem? Like, why was he always putting Harry in danger? Anyway, I will see you all this evening, 4:30. I will probably pop on a little bit early to get going. That's the whole kit and caboodle. Okay, I love you all. Have a great day.